Good morning, children. It's nice to see you all back once again. Today, in our virtual class, we are going to learn a new grammar topic, active and passive voice. In class 9, you would have already learned about active and passive voice, and in 10th standard, you'll be learning few more forms of the voice. Now, what is the difference between an active and a passive voice? When you give importance to what people and things do, that is an active verb or an active voice. And when you give importance to what happens to people and things, that is what we call it as the passive voice. Now, when you give importance to what people or things do, that one we write or say it in active voice. And when you give importance to what happens to the person or thing, we call it as the passive voice. Now let me tell you an example. Look at this sentence. Rama killed the snake. Now here you all would have learned about a subject and an object in your previous class as well. Now here Rama killed the snake. In this sentence, Rama is the subject and the snake is the object. Of course, the verb killed is the verb. Now here, when you give importance to the subject here, you are giving importance to what the subject is doing. So, what is the subject here? Rama killed the snake. Rama. Subject will always be a noun or a pronoun. Now here, Rama killed the snake. So it tells about what did Rama do? Do, isn't it? What did Rama do? He killed the snake. So when you give importance to what the subject did, that is active voice. And when you change this into passive voice, the snake was killed by Rama. In this sentence, the snake, the object which in the active sentence will become the object in passive sentence here. Here I'm saying the snake was killed by Rama. In this sentence, I'm telling about what has happened to the subject. What has happened? The subject here, snake. The snake was killed. So this is the difference between an active and a passive voice. So Rama killed the snake is an active voice. The snake was killed by Rama, it is in passive voice. And also look at the sentence structure. You should know the syntax. Syntax here, the sentence structure in active and passive voice. In the active voice, there was only one verb. Rama killed the snake. But in passive voice, there are two verbs. The snake was killed by Rama. So this is the sentence format as well. So when there is one verb in active voice, there will always be one verb in addition to what is in active. Here there will be two verbs here. Look at another example. He is reading a book. He is reading. So in this active sentences, active sentence, you can see there are two verbs, is and reading. And when you change this into passive voice, the book is being read by him. So that ing form will become being. So the book is being read. So there are three verbs. And here the sentence answers what has happened to the book. So that is a passive voice. So this is another thing which you should know about the syntax or the sentence structure of active and passive voice. And always the person will be given at the end in passive voice. By whom? It will be answering. You will not get by whom in active voice because the sentence itself will start with whom. So Rama, by whom? So Rama killed the snake. The snake was killed by whom? By Rama. So that is one more additional feature of passive voice. Now in your textbook, you are going to see what are the different forms of using active and passive voice. For example, there are four different types of sentences, as you all know. One is assertive, second one is the imperative, third one is interrogative, and the fourth one is exclamatory. Now, how are you going to use active and passive voice in these kind of sentences? Now, assertive, is a statement. Statement, it is a fact. Now, the sentence, the sun goes round, the earth goes around the sun. This is a statement. It's a fact. That is an assertive sentence. Now, order or request, they are known as imperative sentence. Please, please bring me a cup of coffee. That's a request. Bring me a cup of coffee is an order. All these kind of sentences comes under imperative sentence. And the next one is the interrogative sentence. Interrogative means questions. There are two types of questions. One is called the WH questions, which the WH, that is the question which starts with WH. There are seven, only one is the exception, that is how. Otherwise, the rest of them are where, why, when, which, who, where, and the seventh one is how. And then another one is yes or no type question. This yes or no type question always starts with the auxiliary verb. Auxiliary verb, you know all the 24 auxiliary verb. In that, the question starts with auxiliary verb, and the answer to this question will always be yes or no. Is this your book? Yes or no. Are you going to Chennai tomorrow? Yes or no. Did you finish your homework? Yes. Or you can, if you are not finished, you will say no. Have you had your breakfast? Yes or no. So these kind of sentences, they are all called as interrogative sentences. So how will you use active and passive voice in these three kinds of sentences or three forms of sentences? That is what we are going to learn in 10th standard. Before that, in page number 14, you can see that uh, F, section F, some questions are given where you have to fill them and you have to understand the difference while changing from active to passive voice. First, let us do this exercise and then we'll move on to the next part, that is how to use voice in different kind of sentences. Now here, let me see the first question. As I say, you can write the answer as well, as we discuss about this. The first one. So page number 14. The manager appointed many of his staffs. So this is in active voice because it's telling about what the thing is doing. What did the thing or the person doing? The person is the manager. He appointed. So here. So we have to make it as what happens to the things. Many. So the change in passive voice will be many office assistants were appointed by the manager. Here, what happened to the subject here? Many office assistants, what happened? They were appointed. You can see there is only one verb in active voice, that is manager appointed. And when you come to passive voice, there are two verbs, that is the many office assistants were appointed. So those are the two verbs. By the manager, the preposition by whom will come at the end in passive voice. By the manager. So that's the first model. Now let us go to the second one. You are making a cake now. It's an active voice. We have to change this into passive voice. A cake, it's an ing form. So ing form, I told you to make it as being. A cake is being made by you now. So that is the sentence in passive voice. This now is an adverb. You can use them at any place. Either you can use in the beginning or at the end. Now the cake is being made by you now, or now a cake is being made by you. So both of them are correct. Next one. That portrait was painted by my grandmother. Here you can see that this sentence is already in passive voice because by the grandmother, and it is answering what has happened to the subject. Now, how to change this into active voice? My grandmother painted that portrait. My grandmother painted that portrait. So that's what, that is what it is, active voice. Then next one, fourth one. Malini had bought a colorful hat for her daughter. This one you have to change this into passive voice. So here you will see that this is in perfect tense because had brought or had bought. When you change this into perfect tense from active to passive, now if it is had means in passive you should use had been. Malini had bought a colorful hat for her daughter. So the sentence in passive voice will be a colorful hat had been bought. There are two verbs in active, had and bought, but in passive there are three verbs. Had been bought by Malini for her daughter. That's the fourth one. And the fifth one, they have asked me to pay the fine. That is an active term. They have asked me to pay the fine. How will you change this into passive? I have been asked to pay the fine by them. I have been asked because it's in perfect tense. I have been asked to pay the fine by them. Then next, question number 6. You can see the sixth one over there. The militants were being taken to prison by the police. Now you have to change this into active voice because by the police, you'll know that this sentence is already in passive voice. Now you have to change them into active voice. The police were talking, sorry, take, isn't it? So taking. The police were taking the militants to prison. The police were taking the militants to prison. So that's what you will write for sixth one. And the seventh one. His behavior vexes me. You have to change this into passive voice. I am vexed by his behavior. It's the seventh one. Now we move on to the eighth one. Rosie will solve the problem. Now you have to change this into passive voice. The problem will be solved by Rosie. The problem will be solved by Rosie. And the ninth one. Our army has defeated the enemy. Ninth one. Our army has defeated the enemy. Change this into passive. The enemy has been defeated by our army. Our enemy has been defeated by our army. Then the 10th one, the salesman answered all the questions patiently. To passive voice, all the questions were answered patiently by the salesman. All the questions were answered patiently by the salesman. As I said earlier, patiently is an adverb. You can use it in any place. Either you can say all the questions were answered by the salesman patiently, or you can also say all the questions were answered patiently by the salesman. So this is what these are the answers for the F section, changing from one voice to another voice. Now we are going to learn how to use active and passive voice in different sentences. First, for request. How will you change from active to passive? Now the examples are given in your textbook. You can see passive voice request. In active voice, a request begins with please. When we change a request from active to passive voice, we should begin the sentence with you are requested. You are requested to in place of please. If the request is in negative form not, then you should use the sentence you are requested not to. Let's see an example for this. Active voice. Please assemble in the ground is the sentence. How will you change this into passive voice? You are requested to assemble in the ground. You are requested. If it is in the negative, look another example for that. Please do not use mobile phones here. You are requested not to use mobile phones here. Same thing for advice, for advising somebody or ordering or instructing somebody. How will you use? Look at the example. Same thing, like how you will use for request. You are requested. You will use the same thing. You are advised. You are instructed, or you are ordered. An example in active voice. Work hard. You are advised to work hard. And in the negative, an example. Do not eat junk food. You are advised not to eat junk food. You are advised not to eat junk food. Then, active to passive voice. Omitting the agent. Now, sometimes when you know the person, you can say by whom. When the person is not known clearly, if it is written someone or no one, you need not write the person by. You can omit that. That is why omitting the agent. You can see there in page number in the next page. Omitting. You can see here. Omitting the agent. In the sentence beginning with someone or no one, omit the agent in the passive voice. Now, example. Somebody has taken away my book. So, here you have to say, my book has been taken away by somebody. But you can ignore writing by somebody. It is not necessary. You can avoid that, omit that. My book has been taken away. It is understood. Or if it is in the negative, no one has bought the tickets. The next line you can see here. No one has bought the tickets. So in the passive voice, The tickets have not been bought. You need not write by no one. That is not necessary. That's what omitting an agent. And finally, how will you use passive voice in interrogative sentences? When sentences are changed to passive, they begin with a verb. That you know, isn't it? Because yes or no type question, one type of question which starts with a verb. That is yes or no type question, auxiliary verbs. Or with a question word followed by the verb. Or it is followed by WH question. Every WH question will have a verb after that. Now, what did you? See, what did? Did is a verb. When did? Or what are you doing? Now, what are? So, everything after WH, you will have a verb. Now, um, questions beginning with auxiliary verb. That's the example. That is yes or no type question. How will you change from active to passive voice? Here, an example. Did he write a letter? Now, you have to start with the verb always. Was a letter written by him? Did he write a letter? We will always start the yes or no type questions with a verb. Was a letter written by him? Okay. Another example. Is he watching us? Passive. Are we being watched by him? Because is he, for he the verb is, but for we the verb is are. Now that is those are the we verbs which we use for he third person singular and we the second person, sorry, the first person plural, we. Okay. Then how will you use questions beginning with WH words? Example, who will accept this? Into passive. By whom? So by whom? So here the question WH will come in the beginning itself. By whom will this be accepted? Then second, another example. Who has arranged this meeting? By whom has this meeting been arranged? And third one. When will you finish the building? When will the building be finished by you? So here see, when will you finish? So the subject will go as the object. And the building will come as a subject. How you change, no? That is what you do while you change from active to passive voice. And the last example given here, how did they do this? How was this done by them? How was this done by them? So all the subjects, even in this questions, you can see all the subjects becoming the object and all the objects becoming the subject. So these are the examples. You have to revise this once again. Once or twice you go through this video, what I have explained. Then after this, you can go to the next page. That is page number 16. And you can see two task exercises are given for you to do it. I mean, three tasks, G, H and I. If you do these three, it's enough. Change the following into passive voice. And in H, in the following sentences, the verbs have two objects, namely direct and indirect object. Change each of the following sentence into two passives using direct object as the subject in one and indirect in the other. Okay, you have to change that. Now, for example, the first one, John gave a bar of chocolate to Jill. Here is telling, give for one example, importance to direct object. Here in this sentence, the direct object is chocolate, a bar of chocolate, and the indirect object is Jill. The person there is the indirect object. The person is the indirect object. A person at the end. So Jill is the indirect object, person. If it is a thing, thing is the direct object. A bar of chocolate. So you have to start with direct object and indirect object. Now if you start with a direct object, a bar of chocolate, when you change, Jill was given a bar of chocolate. Then a bar of chocolate by John. But when you change that, so Jill, so when you give importance to Jill here, it is an indirect, it is giving importance to indirect object. But when you give importance to direct object, a bar of chocolate was given to John, sorry, to Jill by John, or by John to Jill. A bar of chocolate was given by John to Jill. So this is what it is. Likewise, for the second, third and fourth and fifth, you have to find the direct object and start with the direct object, and the indirect object, and you have to start with the indirect object. So here you can find the example. So in the second one, Kirtana is the indirect object. A pencil is the direct object. You have to start with a pencil and you have to start with Kirtana. So likewise, you'll work out all G, H and I, and you'll finish it, and you'll send the snapshot now, which you can take from your textbook, and you can send it to my personal number. I hope today you understood passive and active voice thoroughly. If you can write all the exercises correctly, that means you are well versed in active and passive voice. Thank you, children. Hope all of you understood today's class. I'll meet you once again later in another with another topic. Until then, this is your English master signing off.